Welcome to the DIY Goalie podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. How are we doing today, goalies? Welcome back again to another episode of the DIY Goalie podcast with your hosts Nathan Park and Connor Monday, as always. Before we get started, I do want to touch on a couple things quick. So when this episode airs, we'll be pretty close to the end of the month in November. So every month, the last day of the month, so it'll be the 30th this month, we send out a monthly newsletter where we have a little bit of a kind of mini article that's exclusive to the email list, as well as a full-on practice plan. So we have kind of different themes each month. And so I'm actually going to put together a practice plan of kind of on-ice cognitive training. That'll be our theme for this month. So that'll be a good one. So if you guys want to hop in on that, you can head to the DIYgoalie.com/email and sign up. The other thing too is we are running a Black Friday sale for all of the merch that we have in our shop. So that is going to be running until December 1st. So you can use the code BF24 at checkout and get 15% off everything on our store. So if you head to the DIYgoalie.com/shop, that's where you can do that and take advantage of that while you can. So that's kind of all I have for the housekeeping stuff before we get started. How are we doing today, Connor?
I just signed up for the newsletter, so I'm excited to get those. No, I'm good. I have some exciting news that I think we can bring to the podcast. I've been telling everybody about it because I'm very, very excited. We found out, my wife and I, last Tuesday that she's pregnant, and so we are expecting a little Monday to be running around here, which is it's a little Monday. It's exciting. Very, very, very important to us for reasons that I'm not going to get into on the pod because they are kind of a little bit personal. But no, we are very, very excited about that. So I've definitely been picking up a few more shifts with True North Goaltending and trying to bring in that extra cash flow as well, because children are expensive. So,
yeah, but especially if you have a goalie.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I saw the Snapchat video that you sent me the other day of Hayden in the living room with the street hockey pads on. I was like, oh, no. Yeah. I was like, oh, Nathan's indoctrinating him now. So
yeah, well, that was all on him. So not to get too far into the weeds, but just quickly, my oldest, he is 5, and he has been really into us playing mini sticks in the living room lately. And so he put on his pads and he was like, Daddy, I want to show you my drops. So that's what he called going into his butterfly, was his drops. So he's like, I want to show you my drops. So he was showing me his drops and going into the butterfly. So
meanwhile,
I'm
Nathan's
in trouble.
Meanwhile, Nathan's like nitpicking.
Yeah. Hey, hands up. Knees together. Yeah.
Anyways, the point being, you're in trouble. You're screwed. Nice knowing you. True North and DIY is going bankrupt. So
yeah. No, that's all good. So we've got a couple segments again today. So we each got one on the docket. So do you want to start us off today? I think I went first last time. So
so I'm actually going to kind of echo our boy David Hutchinson from Ingle Magazine. Still kind of jealous that you got the chance to talk to him and have him on.
I'm sure he'll come on again. He's a beauty.
You know what? It's either get him or Woodley. I would actually love to have Woodley on because I feel like he and I would just be talking for hours on end.
Yeah, I'm not a part of that. I'm out.
It's going to be a live 10-hour DIY goalie podcast. Woodley
it will just be chirping back and forth. That's all.
I did end up reaching out to Darren Millard over Facebook. He has not answered me. I wouldn't have expected him to answer me, but it would have been cool if he did. Anyways, what Hutch talked about at Ingo Magazine that I kind of wanted to echo on our platform was talking about having your young goalie start to learn a little more responsibility, but also learn to kind of be or act like a pro at a young age level. Hutch goes into a little more detail in this particular instance, but he has kind of touched on it in some other podcasts or some other Engel podcasts that he was talking about. So I just kind of wanted to go and echo them here. As your goalies start to get older, it comes with more responsibility, such as in life in general. So at some point as goalie parents, we need to kind of take the leash off of our kid, if you will, and start letting them kind of make their own decisions, or kind of let them start to game plan their day, or kind of their for lack of a better term, warm up, if you will. So what Hutch was going on about today, just when it comes to, you know, having your young goalie start to learn to be a pro, it starts with things, you know, like learning when practice is, learning when games are, what time, what rink are they at, you know, and starting to relay that information to the parents. You know, it's particularly once you're starting to get into U13, U15, dare I say U11, start to ask your questions to your kid, something along the lines of like, hey, when's practice? You know, do you know what time practice is? You know, start to have your kid learn to have that responsibility, you know, in terms of knowing when practice or when game time is. What time do you want to be there for the rink? Do you want to be there an hour and 15 beforehand? Do you want to be there 45 minutes beforehand? What does coach say? You know, so starting to learn the, I want to say inner workings, but that's not the word that I'm looking for. Starting to learn the habits of getting into a mindset, or getting into a rhythm rather, when it comes to playing hockey. There are other things as well, as, I mean, we've had Pete Fry on in terms of getting your goalie into a professional mindset, and getting into a good mindset before you go into a game. Even there were things like the Hutch was kind of talking about, is that you don't want your kid to be so serious either. You know, like, kids still need to have a little bit of fun at the same time. You know, if you're going on a tournament, you know, you want to play mini sticks in the hallway or whatever, that's fine. But your kids also, in the same breath, need to learn to, you know, so, hey, 7:00 is coming about. Coach wants us in bed at 8, so which means I shouldn't be going to the pool at 7:45. You know, so it's just small little things like that. There was another podcast that I was listening to. It's called Goalie Science with Jamie Phillips. Another guy we should probably get on when it comes to dress, in terms of, and when coming to the rink. I'm all for the standard suit, tie, you know, if you want the beanie cap, whatever. This is kind of where I have a little bit of an issue with it, because I really have a problem with hockey players, coming to the games in suits, which is fine, but their pants are maybe a couple inches above their bare ankles being exposed. I'm a traditionalist when it comes to that regard, and so just that it threw me off guard, because it was one of the hosts was like, you know, don't wear white socks, but was perfectly okay with having bare ankles being shown. And so I'm like, that makes no sense whatsoever in my opinion. But I mean, but that's the other thing as well, you know, like starting to come to work, essentially looking a little more professional. Long are the you know, the hood, no hoodies, no track suits or nothing unless team approved or whatever. And I'm going to be a little bit controversial here, and I intend to be: cut your hair, clip the hair, look sharp, look professional. Don't have. I genuinely hate the toque with the wings, they call it, out from under the toque. I genuinely hate it. You look like an idiot.
Connor doesn't like salad.
No, I do not. I really don't. I actually don't. I'm 100% a traditionalist, man, and that's perfectly fine. The point
Old
being
man yells at cloud.
I hate you. Shout out to Brad McDonald. I'm very sorry for putting you on blast last podcast.
Oh, no.
Oh dear. Anyways, but the point being is that if you want to start taking hockey seriously, particularly if you want to get into the more competitive streams, it is things like that kind of require a little bit more. I want to say gumption, but that's also not the word that I'm looking for. It just requires a little more responsibility out of your athlete. So if your athlete is 100% dead center on, I want to play double A. I want to work towards playing double A, playing triple A, major juniors, want to play in the show or whatever, or I want to play overseas or play in the Fed or the SP or whatever, wherever it is that they want to go. But if they want to start getting into the more competitive streams, then they need to start taking and owning a little bit more of that responsibility themselves, without also sacrificing being a kid at the same time. I've been on spring league teams where I don't know what, but like these parents are so dead set on like because my kid's playing that extra little bit of hockey, it's gonna help their chances in getting into the show or whatever, because they're training basically 24/7, 365 days of the year. And I've seen these kids later, and one of them, from what I remember, was playing junior B hockey, which is not like it's a bad thing, but I have another one that I know of who was playing hockey over out in BC, ended up getting traded to the States, decided not to go to the States, is now playing for some random no-name team in Manitoba or Saskatchewan, one of those two places there. So if you want to start taking this game seriously, that's fine. Start working towards taking the game seriously. Start taking a little bit more responsibility than what you originally dealt with, but also don't sacrifice being a kid at the same time. So there's got to be that healthy mix there as well. So I don't know if I really did Hutch any justice here in his article and in his segment on the end goal. I might have just completely butchered it and completely undone all the work that he was talking about, but that was kind of the way that I wanted to go with it.
All right. Can I jump in with a 2-part tangent?
Yes, you may.
Okay. First off, parents. So there's a very fine line between being helpful and being overbearing. So just as a personal example, last year there was a AA team that had me come out, and they had me out a few sessions throughout the year, but they got me to come out and evaluate their goalies. At the start of the year, they were down to 4 goalies. So I went out with them. I watched the session that we had. We had a goalie session, and I evaluated. And out of the 4 goalies, there were 3 of them that I was like, okay, like one for sure is kind of the odd man out, but there's 3 of them. And I said, this goalie, I believe, from what I have seen, is the most skilled goalie. And then this one's number 2, this one's number 3. But the goalie that I had listed at the top, the coach specifically said to me, oh, we are hoping you didn't say that, because they did not want to deal with this goalie's mom, because his mom is one of those ones that is involved in everything, needs to have her opinion voiced about everything, et cetera, et cetera. And ultimately they picked goalies 2 and 3, and they did not pick goalie 1. Now, there's nothing wrong skill wise with goalies 2 and 3. Like, they were all pretty close. But they made that decision solely based off of, I guess, the baggage, if you want to say, that this goalie's mom came with. So there is a time and a place to step in if there is a legitimate problem and a legitimate concern happening. But otherwise, there comes a point where you have to let your players, your athletes, your kids do their thing, right? Especially because these kids were at the age that, some of them were driving themselves to the rink. Some of them, you don't need to be involved in every facet of their life at that point, because it can actually be harmful, right? Like, this goalie did not make this team specifically because of his mom. So yes, we all want our kids to succeed. Yes, we want them to get to the highest level that they can. But there is a time where they have to be the ones to figure out how to handle their situations, and they need you to step back. So this isn't just a shout out to the goalies out there to start, thinking about acting like a pro and doing the right little things and presenting yourself well. It's also the parents, right? Like, there comes a time where a coach should never hear from any player's parents, except for that, oh, hey, how's it going? How's the family? Or whatever in the hallway after a game. So
right.
Take a step back, enjoy the ride, watch them from the stands, let them have, their success. And if you really need to, if there's a big problem, you can step in. But other than that, let them do their thing. Now,
if I may jump in there, I don't know if you're done with that part of the tangent.
Kind of, not really, but
kind of not really.
Hop in.
From my experiences in coaching at all different facets of hockey at all different age levels, I'm gonna have to be straight up here, and again, I'm probably not going to be the most popular guy in that regard. I will not listen to what a goalie parent has to say unless it is of substance. Straight up, I will not. Like, if you wanna talk to me about, oh, little Johnny didn't make this team because of XYZ reason, because the coach hates me or hates the kid or whatever, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. I also realistically won't listen to parents who say, oh, I used to be a goalie back in the 80s or whatever. Immediately I've stopped listening to you, because I just, fine, okay, great, but how you used to play a very long time ago isn't how the game is played now. And so I genuinely will tune you out. I have not had a problem when I've coached in the junior stream and my junior A team and my junior B team. Again, same deal. There was kind of the one goalie dad who was kind of hanging about, but he wasn't really getting himself involved or anything. And so always volunteered with the team. Really nice guy. A little out there, but really nice guy regardless. And so the few times that I did talk to him and say, I would initiate that conversation and say, hey, here's how your son's doing, because I think you deserve to know, that type of deal. You're not coming down on me about it. You're not overbearing on it or anything. It's just, hey, here's what's up. Thought you'd like to know, and go on from there. But yeah, I've been on some teams where I've had goalie parents, hockey parents in particular, where I've just eventually had to tune them out, because what they're chatting with me about either has no substance or questioning my ability is wrong or questioning my ability, right? So I hate to say that. I really do. I hate that I just said that if like I tune goalie parents out, because I don't, because I don't want to. I don't want to have to, I want to have that dialogue with them. But Nathan, you and I have been in both that same boat where we've had parents where you and I have talked afterwards and we're like, oh boy, you know, um, yeah, you don't want to be a parent cut. You don't want your kid to be a parent cut. And I've seen and heard of more and more stories like that nowadays, and I don't know where this is coming from.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it's one of those things, like if you are a goalie parent and you're interacting with coaches and whatnot, like the one thing that irks me a little bit, I'll kind of entertain it, but one of the things that does irk me a little bit is the my goalie needs to work on this, this, and this. This is what we should work
Yes.
on this session. And to me, I'm like, okay, but more often than not, they don't have the experience to really, make that judgment call. Like a lot of it's surface level stuff, right? Where it's like, this session we need to work on blocker side because my kid can't stop anything to the blocker. And it's like, okay, but like why? Like there's something there that is more than just the surface level, like, hey, let's work on screens today or whatever because they're struggling with screens. Well, are they struggling with screens because they're not tracking the puck? Are they not battling hard enough to find, like there's other things there besides the surface level stuff that a lot of people don't have the experience to notice. And for me, especially if I'm working with a new goalie, I want to see their fundamentals first before I look at anything else. So don't come at me with, I think we need to work on this, this, and this. And I'll be like, well, I need to look and see how this goalie tracks a puck. I need to see how this goalie executes their saves. I need to see how this goalie skates. And then from there, we can identify what the issues are and hone in on the issues and then build out from there. So that's kind of a side tangent just based off of that. But yeah. The last thing I guess I'll say when it comes to the parents is just set your kids up for success. They will be fine. Give them the tools to be good people because that's going to translate into being good hockey players. The problem is, I find, and I've heard it from players that are in their teens, is there are some players that are talking about how entitled they feel like their teammates are and how much drama there is on teams nowadays. And to me, you need to teach your kids, I guess, set them up for success, right? When we talk about acting like a pro, what it takes to be a pro is owning up when you make a mistake, having some accountability, having the drive to get better and to lessen those mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes. It's fine, right? Like the problem is when you get the players, this is not just goalies, but just in general, that are blaming other people for their mistakes, and not taking that accountability. So that's the big one. Like you need to teach your player that they are not going to go far if they don't hold themselves accountable, if they're a bad teammate, if they're bad body language, if they don't know how to deal with stressful situations and all of that stuff. Like set them up to be successful and to have the tools to deal with situations on their own. Yes, you can be there as support, but at the end of the day, especially if they play at a higher level and they're being billeted 3 provinces away or in a different country or whatever the case is, they're not going to have you to lean on. So give them the tools to be a pro on their own and to have the good character traits that make good players and good people. And that's kind of all I have for the parents.
Yeah. Again, we could do a whole another podcast on that, and I think we should, because I think we can kind of maybe throw ourselves under the bus a little bit, but I think we need to talk about influencers in hockey, because there's one,
social media influencers.
Yeah, well, just social media, but I'm also thinking just like media in general when it comes to hockey. Because when I'm listening to you talk about it, and I hate that I'm going to bring this up because I love this show, I think of Shorzy. I think of Shorzy immediately. But then there's another guy who does a podcast out in Winnipeg. I'm not going to name drop him, but I can't stand listening to him talk because I think he has a bad attitude. Again, I'm not going to go any further than that, but I think we maybe need to talk about the influences in hockey as well. Maybe that could be its own separate pod. But I think because social media is so free and open nowadays, and you can get exposed to a lot of different types of people with a lot of different types of content specifically relating to hockey. There are some people in the hockey world outside of what you generally see in the pro leagues that I think kids look up to and utilize as a bit of an influence, so to speak. That's all that I'm going to go into more in that, but I think like again, like we talk about like there's been such a massive talking point about hockey culture, specifically in Canada, where people really have a problem with it, right? And so, like again, we could totally do a whole podcast on that. We're not going to today, but I think that's maybe we're talking about later down the line.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of, I guess, segues into my second part of the tangent, which
I completely forgot about that.
But no, like I was gonna kind of now just talk to the players, like the goalies, and just, at the end of the day, the word that everything comes down to is respect, right? And that's, your teammates, your coaches, your parents, the refs, yourself, whatever. It comes down to respect, and just, the attitude is probably the biggest thing about being a quote unquote pro, right? Like, coaches will overlook certain things if you have a great attitude about things, especially if you're a bubble player with other bubble players or goalies or whatever. If you are on the same level in terms of skill, maybe even slightly less, but you have a much better attitude, coaches are more likely to pick you. If you're coachable, if you what's the word I'm looking for, if you're, I don't know, willing, I guess, to take that feedback, and if you have that drive, that perseverance to get better, and again, are accountable, these are the things that coaches do actually take a look at. They notice these things, right? They look at the kids who are there 2 hours before a game as opposed to 30 minutes before a game, right? They look at the kids who, go and give somebody a tap after they make a good play or whatever the case is, right? They go shake hands, and they're personable, they're respectful. There was a goalie that I worked with who is a junior B goalie, and he wasn't really happy with the spot that he was in, and he's in the same spot now. Like, he's still playing for the same team, but I just got the sense from him that he was not, like, he thought he didn't belong in the spot that he was. And one thing I'll tell all of you right now is, you are not better than where you are. Yes, maybe you should be playing at a higher level for whatever reason you got cut or whatever, but you are where you are. Deal with it as best as you can. Make the most of your situation. You are not better than where you are, because once you have that attitude that you should be playing somewhere else, you should be at a higher level, you should be, that you're just better than the situation that you're in, that's when things start to go downhill really quick. Because, for example, this goalie that I'm talking about, in practice, I talked about it with him, he would drop one knee, like he'd almost do a VH in practice when he'd make a save. He'd keep his glove leg up and he'd drop his blocker leg down. And I kind of went up to him and I'm like, hey, is this how we make saves in a game? Like, is this how we want to, like, how efficient is this save right now? You're basically just blocking the puck. And yes, it might hit you. But then he comes back to me and he's like, well, I know where they're going to shoot. I know they're shooting glove side. So I'm just like, this is just what I'm doing when I know they're shooting glove side. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then, halfway through practice, he gets beat blocker side doing that. And I'm like, oh, they're shooting glove side. Hey, like, it's kind of that attitude, right? That's like, I shouldn't be here. I'm better than this. Boo hoo. Like, you know what I mean? And not to ruffle too many feathers, but it's kind of the reality, right? Like, you are where you are for whatever reason. Make the most of it. Ian Gordon said at the end of the interview that we had in the episode that we had him on, he said, embrace the development, embrace your opportunity, right? Like, every time you're on the ice is an opportunity to get better, regardless of the situation. You can pull something out of there to get better. So do it, right? Don't have that attitude, that mentality that, the world's out to get you. You're in a spot you shouldn't be. Like, take accountability for why you're there. Work on the things that need to get better. Be respectful, be coachable, have the right character traits, and that will take you a lot farther than any sort of, level of skill will. So, end of my rant.
Yeah, it's again, just better attitude. That's all you got. That's big thing that a lot that coaches look for. Anyways, I feel like I completely butchered Hutch's post, so sorry, Hutch.
Okay.
And I guess we'll jump into your thing here,
Yeah.
which is talking about tools in the toolbox.
Yeah. So what I had wanted to touch on, and before I got on a bit of a heated rant,
yeah, I was gonna be like, Nathan's talking for a while here. Like, who hurt him?
Yeah. No, I wanted to touch on, and we've kind of briefly talked about it throughout other podcast episodes, but I wanted to touch on the fact that goaltending is very much not black and white. And there's a lot of variables, a lot of different situations. And what I want all of you goalies out there to really take away from this is that we need to put as many tools in our toolbox as possible, because not every situation is going to be the exact same, and we're going to need to be able to do a bunch of different things at any given time, right? So, there's, even though it's not really taught anymore, and even though it's kind of gone the way of the dodo a little bit, there is an argument that the odd time a VH might actually be a decent decision to make, right? And a lot of people harp on the RVH because players have figured it out and now they're hitting that short side spot. But the RVH is a great tool when it's used properly, when it's used effectively. And having that ability to go into the RVH at the right time and making that decision is huge. But then also being able to play the overlap or standing post play or the VH, right? Because you just never know which situation might be best. Because we can give general rules of thumb. We can give, like, oh, hey, in this situation, we would like to do this, but that's in a perfect world. Sometimes we get a little bit out of position and we don't have time to say get into an RVH. So maybe the VH is the play there, or maybe we miss our post in an RVH. So we have to kind of improvise a little bit and maybe do a modified overlap or something, right? Like whatever the case is. So when you guys are, practicing, when you're developing, when you're working on your skills, this is why we need to have a wide range of what we work on. And yes, we don't want to get to the point where we're like a jack of all trades, master of none. That's not really what I'm saying, but we need to be able to have multiple skill sets that we can call upon depending on the situation and depending on the split second decision that we make at that specific time, to be able to, help put us in the best situation possible, because you just never know. There's so many variables. You just never know what's going to happen and what you need to do.
I may have one way of looking at a situation. Nathan may have a different way of looking at a situation. As long as the result is a save that ends up going the opposite way into the offensive zone, that's all realistically that we care about at the end of the day. There's no one right way to play the position. So again, I've had goalies where I tell them, say, hey, you should try doing it this way, and I'll explain to them why. And I've had them straight up go, no, I don't like that. I refuse to try it. And it's either because they straight up either didn't like it or they just didn't understand it for whatever reason. But a good goalie, a great goalie, knows when to be flexible. And I don't mean physically flexible. I mean when to be open to new ideas and say, hey, yeah, I might not utilize the VH on the post a whole lot, but not a bad thing to practice in the odd chance that I have to for whatever reason. I can kind of relate to that because I find myself using the VH a lot more in beer league than I do the RVH. And I think that's just because I'm tired and I don't want to go down into my RVH. But the point still being that there are a lot of different ways to play the position. There's no one set way over the other. You may want to play like your favorite goalies, whether that be Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, Swayman, whoever, right? But you're not going to be exactly the same as whoever it is that you want to emulate your game like. So I think for goalies in particular, particularly even older goalies, whether beer league to juniors or to U15, U18, still need to be open and, again, flexible to new ideas or to a new way of looking at how to read a situation or how to make a save.
Yeah, and get out of your comfort zone. Like, practice outside of your comfort zone. It's great. Like, the thing is when we do drills and we're doing recoveries or any sort of thing like that, very rarely do we get our goalies to slide, because every goalie out there, as soon as they step on the ice, the first thing they try and do is slide. Most goalies out there are very good, I guess, or at least for their overall skill level, one of their strongest things is usually a butterfly slide. So this is why pretty much every time we work with our goalies and we get them to recover. We get them to do a T-push recovery back to their feet, because it's a good habit to have. It's a good tool to have in your tool set to be able to get to your feet quickly and not just stay on your knees the whole time, right? And of course, there's times where you want to stay on your knees, like when things are in tight and all of that stuff. We need to be doing that, but it's not like, most of the time we are better off on our feet. So we need to make that, or have that tool to be able to make that decision based on the situation.
Yeah, edge work is a dying art, I find. Fun fact, actually, in a lot of the facility sessions that I do, um, I really, really, I don't really emphasize, but I emphasize it enough in terms of when we get our goalies to recover, to make sure that they're recovering back to their feet. I am very, very tempted the next time that I am at the facility is to tell the goalie not to put the roller flies on. Okay, if I'm doing a drill where I want them to recover back to their feet more, I'm honestly just half tempted to tell them, don't put the roller flies on, and because I'm going to make it more difficult for you, because I want you to really start focusing on getting back to your feet. Whether I actually do that or not, it's a different story. But the point being is that, yeah, just a lot of goalies we find. I mean, like, there's even discussion about this where if the rebound ends up in the far corner, goalies will still recover to their post down in their knees, and then all of a sudden the RVH when the puck is in the far reaches of the corner, and it makes no sense because they do give up the top of the net from that corner. It doesn't matter how tall you are. Doesn't matter how big you are, you still have those holes opened up there. And if a good shooter knows how to exploit that, they will do it. So I do find that edge work is a dying art, particularly when it comes to their recovery.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it, right? It's always easier to get from your feet to your knees than it is from your knees to your feet once you've made that commitment.
Even just like the cross creases. I had a goalie where he was fast on it. He was fast on his knees, but he was always slow getting beating the pass across. And so, like, I kept telling him, it's like, you can't, like, it's a cross crease, dot to dot, top of the circle to the other top of the circle. The heck are you sliding for? Oh, it's because I'm faster. It's like, well, no, you're not, because you keep getting beat when you're coming out of your slide. And so I get him to try going from starting in his butterfly T-push recovery on his feet to his next position, and he's making saves, and he still is like, no, I'm going to slide. I'm like, bro, like, I just showed you the difference, and you're not going to take that. That's one of those instances where it is kind of black and white that I find, where it's like, I just showed you a system that works, and we proved that it works, and you still decide that you're going to do it the other way. You are handicapping yourself at this point.
Yeah, attitude.
Again,
play like attitude. A pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the biggest thing, I guess, just from the point from this segment that I brought, is that you guys are going to benefit greatly from stepping outside of your comfort zone and working on the stuff you are not good at, experimenting with the stuff you haven't tried. Because as a goalie, we are making split-second decisions all the time in a game. And it's way nicer to be able to have 2 or 3 potential options based off of the situation, that you can be like, oh, I can do this. This is definitely the better option in this specific situation. I'm doing that, right? As opposed to just being like, well, I got one tool, let's see how it goes, right?
Yeah.
Like, then you're kind of pigeonholing yourself. So if there is something that you haven't worked on, try it out. I personally do not like the Panda, but I've never...
I still don't understand it.
Yeah, I've, like, the Panda kind of came to be after I stopped playing, so I've never used it. So my position on it could maybe change if I ever did implement it. Now, the reason I don't like it is because I think goalies should be square, especially younger goalies. They get into issues if they're not square with the puck. But there 100% there is specific situations that it could be very useful to use, right? And it's something that if you're working on it, if you're getting outside of your comfort zone, you may not use it very often, but it's there. And there may be a situation where you're like, oh, I could actually play this in the Panda and maybe, put myself in a better spot, right? And that's my challenge to you guys, is to take the stuff that you're not good at, work on it. Take the stuff you haven't tried, try it out. Get those tools in your toolbox so that you have the option, if you get into that situation, to be able to use it. If you don't use it, whatever, right? Like, spend your time more on the stuff that you do use, but have some things in there that, aren't part of your tool set. And you never know, you might end up implementing something into your regularly scheduled programming, right? Who knows? You might become a Panda goalie. I don't know, but
if anybody's ever worked in construction or has done anything to do with, if they've ever actually worked with hardware or tools, they'll know they know that sometimes tools will break down, tools will not be as useful as they once were. The similar analogy goes for kind of what we're talking about here. What was working for you in U9, U11, U13 isn't, and it's suddenly not working in U15. Okay, well, now we got to adjust. Same idea. It's like if you were playing double A last year and you come to play triple A this year, and how you thought your game was, and it's not working as you progress into the next level. Okay, well, now you got to adjust, right? So think about it maybe that way. It's just you always want to be open to improving. You always want to be open to new ideas. I just thought about this. Is like, if you think about Marc-Andre Fleury, oldest goaltender in the league right now, how he played back when he was drafted in 2003 isn't how he's playing now in 2024. Probably some similar instances in his game, but I bet you if you look at a clip from his first year and you look at a clip from this year playing with the Minnesota Wild, two completely different goalies. Something to think about realistically. If you think that you're better than Marc-Andre Fleury and say, I don't need to change my game, Marc-Andre Fleury is one of the oldest and longest serving goalies in the NHL. Take that as you will.
Yeah. Just to finish it off too, I like that the construction analogy. Like, it's going to be really hard for you to build a house with nothing but a table saw, right?
Yeah.
The table saw will be great for cutting big sheets of plywood, but it's going to suck for cutting small 2x4s and stuff like that, right?
Speaking from experience, or?
No, I have not tried to build a house just with a table saw.
Oh no, I was thinking of facility, but
oh yeah, no. All right, well, we will wrap it up there. I don't think I have anything else that I didn't say at the start. Just a reminder, email list is coming out soon, and Black Friday sale on everything on our website. As always, we have the complete goaltending breakdown course too that you can check out at the DIYgoalie.com/courses. Connor, why don't you take us away and tell us all about our social media platforms?
Yes, because I'm the new social media guy. Hey. First off, thank you everybody for listening. If you're listening on your podcasting platforms, make sure you share all across your social media platforms: Facebook, X, Instagram, MySpace, if that even is still a thing. LimeWire. So let's see, what else do we got? You can follow us on your favorite podcasting platforms. If you're a first time listener, we are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, all the fun spots there. And if you want to see Nathan and my beautiful faces, you guys can check us out over on YouTube, youtube.com/the DIY Goalie. Again, you can visit us.
Don't forget the @sign.
Yes,
it needs to be /
the DIY
the
Goalie.
DIY Goalie.
Exactly. Obviously, we will have kind of a brief blurb about every podcast that Nathan and I do over at the DIYgoalie.com. Again, we got our email list there that Nathan has already gone over. You can follow myself personally over on Instagram at MondayGC. Said that I was going to post more goaltending stuff on there. Have yet to do that, but that's besides the point. But yeah, we're very thankful for the listenership and for the support group that we do have for the DIY Goalie and True North Goaltending. That's the other thing that I should have mentioned, is that if you are in the Edmonton area or coming to visit the Edmonton area for Christmas time, tournaments, just because, and if you want to get a quick session in or whatever, you want to come check us out, you can check our in-person goalie school at True North Goaltending. It's www.truenorthgoaltending.com. You can also follow us over on, again, the social media platforms at YEG Goalie Coach. Again, it's the @ YEG Goalie Coach. That's where Nathan does posts a lot of his stuff. That's his only social media presence that we have for him, and that's kind of the best thing for everybody. And then beyond that, it's been a blast, and we are definitely looking forward to next week's episode as Nathan and I record this, because we have a very, very, very special guest that is going to bring a lot of interesting insight, and he and I kind of share a similar job, so it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. So interviews are coming.
Yes, they are. We do have a few people. Lined up. I know people starting to get tired of listening to us. I say that, but yet our listenership numbers from all over the world is interesting. Again, Canada and US being the top two. And then I still can't get over Australia being number 3. And then obviously,
I think they're getting overthrown soon, because Czechia has moved to 4th now, and they're very quick or very short behind.
Well, I really want to start diving into how goalie development is overseas. The one guy that I want to get on the pod I do want to ask him that question, because being a former pro goalie, living back over in kind of the I want to say the Netherlands region, but that's nowhere near. Just living back over in the European area, I wonder if he is still tied to the game of hockey over there, and just kind of what the development is like over there as well. I do have a few people that or one other person rather that came to Canada from Italy because she was playing hockey over there, then decided to want to come play juniors here in Canada. So I'd like to have a chat with her and just kind of talk a little more in depth about how development, how training and all that was over there, because I think it's interesting learning from different countries. We have the States, and it's like, okay, fine, but they're also boring, so we need to learn from other people. So
a way to cut out half of our listeners. Yeah. No, actually, if you guys do have any connections out there that you think would be a good perspective, reach out to 100%. Us, pass them along. Because like I did reach out to Ice Hockey Australia. I was hoping to get maybe somebody to talk about their goalie development, because I thought that would have been a cool perspective. But I got crickets back, so
pun intended.
Might have to find a more direct line. But yeah, if you guys know of anybody who might have an interesting perspective to come on the podcast, drop us a line, right? You can always email us at info@thediygoalie.com or reach out on our social media platforms. But we appreciate any sort of
or even if you are somebody who if you are somebody and you have a perspective that you would like to share, or that you think would be interesting to have on the pod, same deal. Feel free to drop us a line. I'm gonna plug this as well here. Again, any questions or anything we initially wanted to do a whole episode on it, but I've kind of narrowed it down to just like a segment now. So again, it can be a goalie question, can be a goalie parent question, a goalie coach question. Again, feel free to drop a line in our inbox.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will be back next week.